Emma Walker had always considered herself self-aware. A successful psychotherapist with a thriving practice in Boston, she prided herself on helping others confront their darkest impulses. Yet at 42, she found herself increasingly restless, plagued by dreams that left her gasping awake in the middle of the night. "What exactly do you remember from these dreams?" Dr. Richard Chen asked during their supervision session, his office overlooking the Charles River bathed in autumn sunlight. Emma hesitated, organizing her thoughts. "There's always a door. A heavy wooden door with intricate carvings. I know something. Important waits behind it, but I'm terrified to open it." Dr. Chen nodded, jotting notes. Carl Jung would have found that symbolism quite telling. He believed the female shadow contains aspects women are conditioned to suppress: anger, assertiveness, sometimes even ambition. "But I'm hardly suppressing my ambition," Emma countered, gesturing to her credentials mounted on his office wall. "I've built a career helping others." "Perhaps," Dr. Chen smiled knowingly, "but Jung would suggest that helping others can sometimes be the perfect mask for avoiding our own interior work." Emma felt a flutter of defensiveness, which only confirmed his point. She'd been studying Jungian psychology for years, teaching others about the shadow self. Yet somehow, she'd never fully turned that analytical lens inward. As she left his office that afternoon, Emma couldn't shake the sensation of something awakening within her, something she'd spent decades carefully containing. The following Monday, morning found Emma in her office, the space meticulously designed to put clients at ease. Soft lighting, a collection of thriving plants, comfortable furniture and calming blues. Her 9 a.m. appointment, Sophia sat across from her discussing her recent promotion. "Everyone's congratulating me, but I feel like a fraud," Sophia confessed. "Like I don't deserve it," Emma nodded, offering practiced reassurance. "That's completely normal. Imposter syndrome affects many successful women." But as Sophia continued, Emma found her attention drifting to the antique wooden cabinet in the corner of her office, the one that housed client files and personal journals. Something about its closed doors suddenly reminded her of the door in her dreams. "Dr. Walker," Sophia's voice pulled her back. "Did you hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." Emma straightened, embarrassed. "Could you repeat that?" Later, after her last client, Emma remained at her desk reviewing session notes. Her colleague Marcus knocked on her open door. "Still here? It's nearly 7. "Just wrapping up," she replied, not looking up. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. "A few of us are grabbing dinner at that new place on Newberry. Care to join?" Emma hesitated. She liked her colleagues but rarely socialized with them. "I can't tonight. Too much paperwork." After Marcus left, Emma sat in the growing darkness. The truth was, she could have gone. The paperwork wasn't urgent, but something about casual socializing had always made her uncomfortable. The expectation to reveal parts of herself beyond her professional identity. She picked up her phone and scrolled through recent calls. Most were work-related. Emma couldn't remember the last time she'd called someone just to talk. Thanksgiving arrived with its familiar obligations. Emma drove to her parents' colonial home in Lexington, mentally rehearsing pleasant conversation topics for the inevitable uncomfortable moments. Her mother, Catherine, greeted her with a critical once-over. "You look tired, dear. Are you sleeping? Enough?" "I'm fine, Mom," Emma replied, the familiar tension settling between her shoulder blades. Inside, her sister Rebecca was already there with her husband and children. Rebecca's life had followed their mother's template: marriage by 28, children by 30, community volunteering, and careful maintenance of a picture-perfect household. Aunt Emma. Her niece Maya rushed over, wrapping arms around her waist. "I got the highest grade on my psychology project. I used the books you gave me." Emma smiled genuinely for the first time that day. "That's wonderful, Maya." During dinner, conversation flowed around Emma, her father's golf game, Rebecca's committee work, local politics. Emma contributed appropriately when expected, but felt herself observing more than participating. "How's work, Emma?" her father eventually asked. "Busy. Good. The practice is growing." Her mother sighed. All you do is work. Isn't it time you thought about— Mom, Rebecca interrupted. Emma's career is important. Not everyone wants the same things. Emma shot her sister a grateful look, though she detected something else in Rebecca's eyes. Perhaps envy. It was a startling thought. Rebecca had always seemed so content with her choices. Later, helping with dishes, Rebecca lowered her voice. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to have your freedom, to be defined by something other than being someone's wife or mother. Emma nearly dropped the plate she was drying. But you love your life. I do, Rebecca said carefully. Most days. But lately, I've been having these thoughts. What thoughts? Rebecca glanced toward the living room where her family sat. Never mind, it's nothing. Emma recognized the deflection. She used it herself constantly. For the first time, she wondered if she and Rebecca were more similar than different, each hiding parts of themselves to fit expectations. Rebecca as the perfect family woman, Emma as the accomplished professional. Both masks, both incomplete. December brought holiday parties, including the annual psychology department gathering at Boston University, where Emma occasionally taught. She circulated through the crowded room, exchanging pleasantries with fellow academics. Emma Walker, still hiding in plain sight, I see. Emma turned to find Daniel Kaufman, a visiting professor from Vienna specializing in Jungian analysis. They debated vigorously during a symposium last spring. Dr. Kaufman, I didn't know you were back in Boston, just for the semester. His eyes held hers a moment too long. Your paper on adaptive defense mechanisms was brilliant, if somewhat safe. Safe? Emma felt that flutter of defensiveness again. Intellectually sound, certainly. But I wonder if you've ever truly experienced what Jung meant by confronting the shadow. He sipped his wine. It's one thing to understand it academically, another to live it. And you have? She challenged. My breakdown 5 years ago was quite public in academic circles. His frankness surprised her. 3 months in a psychiatric hospital gives one a certain perspective on the shadow self. Emma hadn't known this about him. I'm sorry, I didn't. Don't apologize. It was the most valuable experience of my life. He studied her. You've never really failed at anything, have you, Dr. Walker? Never fallen apart? I consider that a good thing, she replied stiffly. Jung wouldn't. Daniel handed her his business card. I'm giving a workshop next month on shadow integration. You should come. You might find it enlightening. Emma took the card reflexively, though she had no intention of attending. Yet later that night, she found herself unable to throw it away. January brought record snowfall to Boston. Emma trudged through slush to her office each morning, increasingly aware of a growing disconnection between her professional insights and personal blindness. The dreams intensified. Now, when she approached the wooden door, she could hear something behind it, breathing, moving, sometimes crying, sometimes raging. During a session with Thomas, a high-functioning executive struggling with anger issues, Emma found herself unusually irritated by his casual sexism. My assistant got emotional when I criticized her presentation, he said, rolling his eyes. Women in the workplace, am I right? Normally, Emma would use this as an opportunity to explore his attitudes without judgment. Instead, she heard herself say, perhaps she was responding to your condescension rather than delivering reasonable feedback. Thomas looked startled. I thought therapists were supposed to be neutral. Neutrality doesn't mean validating prejudice, Emma replied, surprising herself further. That evening, Dr. Chen noticed her agitation during supervision. Something's shifted, he observed. I was unprofessional with a client today, or perhaps authentic. Jung believed the persona, our social mask, must sometimes crack for real growth to occur. Emma rubbed her temples. I don't have time for a personal crisis. That's precisely when they tend to arrive, he replied. Walking home, Emma's phone rang. Her mother. Emma, it's Rebecca. She's left David. She's not answering my calls. I thought she might have contacted you. Emma's step faltered. perfect, stable Rebecca had left her husband. No, she hasn't called me. This is so unlike her. Something must be wrong. After promising to try reaching her sister, Emma stood motionless on the sidewalk as snow collected on her shoulders. Everything, solid, seemed to be shifting beneath her feet. That night, in her dream, she finally reached for the handle of the wooden door. Rebecca arrived at Emma's apartment unannounced the next evening, her normally immaculate appearance disheveled, eyes red-rimmed. "I didn't know where else to go," she said as Emma ushered her inside. "Mom's hysterical, and Dad just keeps asking what David did wrong, as if it must be his fault because I couldn't possibly have legitimate reasons." Emma made tea, watching. Her sister paced the living room. "Have you spoken to David?" "He's staying with his brother." Rebecca stopped at the window, staring out at the snowy cityscape. "He's as confused as everyone else. 20 years of marriage and he never really saw me." "What do you mean?" Rebecca turned. "Do you know I used to paint? In college, my professors said I had real talent." Emma vaguely remembered Rebecca's art phase, dismissed by their parents as a hobby. "I stopped after marrying David. It seemed selfish to spend hours on something that wouldn't benefit the family." Rebecca's voice hardened. "Do you know what triggered this whole thing? I found my old portfolio in the attic. The woman who made those paintings. She was fearless, angry, passionate. Everything I'm not allowed to be." "Allowed by whom?" Emma asked softly. "Everyone. Mom, Dad, the other school mothers, the community board, even myself." Rebecca's hands clenched. "I've spent my entire adult life being pleasant, accommodating, nurturing, never raising my voice, never demanding space for myself." Emma recognized Jung's female shadow archetype in her sister's words, the suppression of qualities deemed unfeminine, anger, selfishness, creative force. "What are you going to do now?" "I've rented a small apartment. I've started painting again." Rebecca met her eyes. "Emma, I'm terrified. But for the first time in decades, I feel alive." After Rebecca left, Emma sat alone, disturbed by the parallels in their lives. Had she not also constructed a perfect external image that denied essential parts of herself? Her path looked different from Rebecca's, but was it not also a response to expectations, being the intellectual daughter, the successful professional, the one who didn't need connection? She pulled out Daniel Kaufman's card and registered for his workshop. The Shadow Integration Workshop was held in a converted warehouse space in Cambridge. Emma arrived early, instantly regretting her decision when she saw participants arranging cushions in a circle. Group vulnerability was not her strong suit. Daniel Kaufman spotted her hesitation. "Dr. Walker, I'm genuinely surprised you came." "I'm surprised too," she admitted. "You can observe rather than participate if that's more comfortable," he offered, unexpected kindness in his voice. The workshop began with Daniel explaining Jung's concept of the shadow, those disowned parts of ourselves we hide from the world and ourselves. "The female shadow often contains what society deems inappropriate for women," he explained. "Rage, sexual aggression, selfishness, power hunger, destructive impulses. Women are taught from childhood to be nurturing, self-sacrificing, emotionally available, and physically appealing. Qualities that don't fit this template get banished to the shadow." Emma shifted uncomfortably as participants began sharing. An artist who couldn't acknowledge her ambition, a mother who resented her children, a teacher who fantasized about abandoning her responsibilities. "Emma," Daniel eventually asked, "would you like to share?" All eyes turned to her. The professional in her wanted to offer an intellectual analysis, safely distant from personal revelation. Instead, she heard herself say, "I'm angry all the time. I just never let myself feel it." The words surprised her as much as everyone else. "What are you angry about?" Daniel asked gently. Emma struggled to articulate what she'd never consciously acknowledged. "I've spent my life helping others navigate their emotions while denying my own. I listen to everyone's pain, but no one hears mine. I'm successful, but disconnected. I help people build meaningful relationships while I go home to an empty apartment." Then admission cracked something open inside her. Emma didn't cry, she never cried, but her hands trembled. That night, she dreamed of the wooden door again. This time, when she turned the handle, it opened. The following week brought a snowstorm that shut down the city. Emma's clients canceled, leaving her unexpectedly free. Usually she would have caught up on paperwork, but instead, she found herself pulling out old journals she hadn't reviewed in years. The earliest entries from college revealed a young woman with passionate opinions, artistic interests, and romantic hopes. Someone almost unrecognizable to Emma now. When had she become so controlled, so careful? Her phone rang. Marcus from the office. "Checking if you're alive," he joked. "Power's out in half the city." "I'm fine," she replied automatically. "Some of us are gathering at Marianne's apartment. She has a generator. You should come." Emma's instinct was to decline, but something stopped her. "Text me the address." Marianne's apartment was warm and candlelit, colleagues and friends sharing wine and improvised food. Emma knew these people professionally, but realized she knew little about their personal lives. Marianne, seemingly surprised but pleased by Emma's presence, handed her a glass of wine. "We were just sharing embarrassing stories from grad school." Emma listened, smiling at their anecdotes. When her turn came, she surprised herself by sharing a story about accidentally setting off the fire alarm during her oral exams. The laughter felt unfamiliar but good. Later, Marcus walked her partway home through the snowy streets. "You should join us more often," he said. "You're different outside the office, more human," Emma supplied. "I was going to say relaxed, but human works too." His smile was warm. At home, Emma opened her laptop and wrote a long email to Rebecca, sharing thoughts she'd never expressed to her sister, about their parents, about her own struggles with connection, about admiring Rebecca's courage to change her life. It was a small step toward authenticity, but it felt significant. February brought a professional conference where Emma was scheduled to present her research. Her mother called the morning of her departure. "I'm worried about your sister," Catherine began without preamble. "She's throwing away everything for some midlife crisis. She's making different choices, Mom. She's not having a crisis. She'll regret destroying her marriage. And for what? To paint pictures in a rented apartment?" Her mother's voice dripped with dismissal. "I thought at least you would talk sense into her." Something snapped in Emma. "Like you talked sense into me when I wanted to study art history instead of psychology. Or when I dated Michael in college, and you told me he wasn't ambitious enough." "Emma, that was 20 years ago, and I was right. Look at your career now." "My career is successful, Mom, but that doesn't mean your interference was welcome or right. Rebecca is finally doing what makes her happy after decades of living by everyone else's rules, including yours. You've always encouraged her impracticality with your so-called independence." Emma gripped the phone tighter. "My independence isn't so-called. It's real. And it's not a consolation prize for failing to get married." A shocked silence followed. "Is that what you think I believe?" her mother finally asked, voice smaller. "Isn't it?" Emma challenged. After hanging up, Emma sat trembling. She'd never spoken to her mother that way, had never allowed her anger into the open. It felt both terrible and liberating. At the conference, Emma delivered her presentation flawlessly, but during the Q&A, a senior colleague challenged her methodology with barely concealed condescension. "Your interpretation seems rather simplistic, Dr. Walker. Perhaps this explains why your publication record remains modest." The old Emma would have absorbed the insult professionally, responding with deferential clarification. Instead, she straightened her shoulders. "My methodology follows established protocols as outlined in my slides. As for my publication record, I've prioritized quality over quantity and clinical application over academic positioning. But thank you for your concern." The room went silent before light applause broke out. Later, several young researchers approached to express admiration for her response. That night in her hotel room, Emma realized she'd confronted not one, but 2 authority figures in a single day, her mother and a senior colleague. Her shadow was emerging whether she was ready or not. March brought Emma's most challenging client case. Diane, a high-achieving corporate lawyer struggling with work, addiction, and relationship failures. "My latest relationship ended," Diane reported during their session. "He said I was emotionally unavailable." "How do you feel about that assessment?" Emma asked. Diane shrugged. "It's probably accurate. I don't have time for the emotional labor men seem to expect. My career demands focus." Emma felt an uncomfortable recognition. "Do you want closer relationships?" "Sometimes I think I should want them," Diane admitted. "Everyone says I'll regret prioritizing work over family. But honestly, I like my life. I just don't like feeling judged for my choices." The parallels to Emma's own life were unmistakable. Had she been projecting her own unresolved issues onto Diane, subtly pathologizing choices that reflected her own? "What if there's nothing wrong with your priorities?" Emma suggested. "Perhaps the issue isn't your choices but your relationship with those choices, the guilt or defensiveness they trigger." Diane looked surprised. "That's not what I expected you to say." "What did you expect?" "Some insight about fear of vulnerability or childhood wounds, the usual therapeutic narrative." Emma smiled. "Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, and sometimes ambition is just ambition, not compensation for emotional lack." Later, reviewing her notes, Emma recognized that she'd been applying conventional frameworks that pathologize certain female choices, prioritizing career over relationship, independence over connection. Had her therapeutic approach been unconsciously reinforcing the very cultural expectations she herself struggled with? She began reviewing other cases with fresh eyes, wondering where else her unexamined biases might be influencing her work. April found Emma working late in her office, drafting a new paper on gender bias in psychological assessment. The process felt different, more personal, more urgent than her previous academic writing. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel Kaufman. "How's the shadow work progressing?" Emma hadn't spoken to him since the workshop, though he'd remained in her thoughts. She typed, "Messier than expected," he replied. "That's how you know it's working." Emma hesitated, then added, "I'm writing something new. Would you be willing to review it?" His response came quickly. "Send it. I'd be honored." The paper synthesized Emma's clinical observations with emerging research on gender bias in diagnosis, particularly how women's anger was often pathologized while men's was normalized. She integrated Jungian concepts of the shadow with contemporary feminist psychology. Daniel's feedback arrived a week later. Pages of thoughtful comments, challenging questions, and encouraging observations. His final note read, "This is the work you were meant to do, Emma. This is your voice. Not safe, not conventional, but necessary." Emma submitted the paper to the Journal of Psychoanalytic Studies, a prestigious publication that had rejected her work twice before. This time, she didn't temper her conclusions or soften her language to make it more palatable. The work reflected her emerging authentic voice, intellectual but also personal, rigorous but also passionate. The acceptance letter arrived faster than expected. The editor's note mentioned its refreshing perspective and courageous challenge to established frameworks. Emma shared the news with Dr. Chen during their supervision session. "I'm not surprised," he said. "You've been integrating parts of yourself that were previously compartmentalized. Your work reflects that integration." "Feels frightening," Emma admitted, "like I'm exposing something vulnerable." "That's the paradox of shadow work," Dr. Chen replied. "What we fear will make us more vulnerable often makes us stronger. What we think will disconnect us often creates deeper connection." May brought unexpected news. Emma's mother was coming to Boston, alone. "Your father's at a golf tournament," Catherine explained on the phone. "I thought it might be good for us to talk." They met at a restaurant near Emma's office. Catherine looked smaller somehow, less intimidating than Emma remembered. "I've been thinking about our conversation," her mother began after they ordered. "About what you said regarding your career choice." Emma braced herself for justification or defensive counter-arguments. Instead, Catherine said, "I owe you an apology." Emma nearly dropped her water glass. "When you were growing up, options for Women were more limited, Catherine continued. I pushed both you girls toward what I thought would give you security and respect. I wanted Rebecca to have the family stability I valued, and I wanted you to have the professional success I never pursued. You wanted to work outside the home? Emma asked, surprised. I was offered a position teaching mathematics before I married your father. My parents were horrified. Nice girls became teachers only until they found husbands. Catherine's fingers traced the edge of her napkin. I don't regret my choices, but I regret imposing my fears on you and your sister. Emma studied her mother, seeing her clearly perhaps for the first time, not as the judgmental authority figure of her childhood, but as a woman of a different generation who had made the best choices available to her. I'm proud of you, Emma, Catherine said, and I'm trying to understand Rebecca's choices too. It's not easy changing your perspective at 70. I'm finding change challenging at 42, Emma admitted, reaching for her mother's hand. They talked for hours about Emma's work, about Rebecca's art, about Catherine's unexpressed dreams. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a beginning. June brought Rebecca to Boston for an art exhibition featuring emerging artists. Her work, bold abstract pieces with vivid colors and dynamic energy, had attracted attention from local galleries. Emma attended the opening, surprised to see their parents there as well. Catherine stood awkwardly before one of Rebecca's more provocative pieces, clearly trying to find something appropriate to say. It's very expressive, dear. Rebecca laughed. That's one word for it, Mom. Their father, Robert, examined another painting with unexpected interest. This reminds me of your grandmother's work, he said. My mother painted, you know. Not professionally, but she had talent. I didn't know that, Rebecca said, exchanging surprised glances with Emma. Later, as they helped Rebecca pack up unsold pieces, Emma marveled at her sister's transformation. The carefully controlled suburban mother had been replaced by someone more vibrant, more present. Are you dating yet? Rebecca asked unexpectedly. Emma blinked. What? No, I'm focused on work. Rebecca studied her. The way Daniel Kaufman looked at you earlier suggested otherwise. He's a colleague, Emma protested. Though her heartbeat quickened, she hadn't invited Daniel, but he'd appeared at the exhibition, congratulating Rebecca before engaging Emma in conversation that felt charged with unspoken connection. A colleague who couldn't take his eyes off you, Rebecca teased. You know, opening to your shadow doesn't just mean acknowledging negative emotions. It also means embracing desires, needs, vulnerabilities. Emma helped wrap another canvas, avoiding her sister's knowing look. When did you become the psychology expert? I'm not, Rebecca replied, but I am becoming an expert on recognizing when I'm hiding from myself. And right now, sister dear, you're hiding. That night, Emma dreamed not of the wooden door, but of an open meadow, vast and sunlit. She woke feeling strangely peaceful, reaching for her phone before she could reconsider. Would you like to have coffee sometime? She texted Daniel. Outside of academic contexts, his response came minutes later. I thought you'd never ask. Summer brought changes to Emma's practice. She rearranged her office, removing some of the carefully selected professional decor and adding personal touches. A painting from Rebecca, photographs from her travels, books that held meaning beyond academic relevance. Her approach to therapy evolved as well. While maintaining professional boundaries, she found herself more willing to engage authentically, to challenge when necessary, to admit the limitations of psychological frameworks. With Diane, the corporate lawyer, their work shifted from analyzing her relationship patterns to exploring genuine life satisfaction outside conventional expectations. I've started mentoring younger women in my firm, Diane reported during a session. Not trying to make them into mini-me's, but helping them navigate without losing themselves. That sounds meaningful, Emma observed. It is. And strangely, as I've become more comfortable with my choices, I've actually found myself more open to connection. I've been seeing someone for a few months now. He appreciates my ambition rather than feeling threatened by it. Emma shared Diane's progress during supervision with Dr. Chen. Your approach has changed, he noted. I'm less focused on helping clients fit themselves into predetermined concepts of health and more interested in helping them integrate all parts of themselves, even the culturally uncomfortable ones. Jung would approve. Dr. Chen smiled. How are your dreams? Different, Emma admitted. Less confined, less frightening, more expansive. And your paper has created quite a stir in the department. Emma's article had indeed generated significant response. Some critical, some enthusiastically supportive. She'd been invited to speak at several conferences and was considering expanding the paper into a book. I keep thinking about what Jung said about individuation, she told Dr. Chen. That we're not meant to become perfect but to become more fully ourselves. Including the shadow, he agreed. Especially the shadow. As summer progressed, Emma's relationship with Daniel deepened. Unlike previous relationships where she'd maintained careful distance, she found herself willing to risk vulnerability. What scares you most about us? Daniel asked one evening as they walked along the Charles River. Emma considered the question seriously. That I'll lose myself. That I'll become so focused on the relationship that I'll abandon my other priorities. The way your mother did? Maybe. Or maybe it's just easier to manage life when emotional variables are contained. Daniel took her in. The tragic irony being that containment itself becomes the greatest risk to authentic happiness. Very poetic, Dr. Kaufman, Emma smiled. Your Viennese showing. My point, he continued, is that the female shadow often includes not just the culturally rejected qualities like anger or ambition, but also the fear of needing others. Independence becomes a shield against vulnerability. Emma stopped walking. Are you analyzing me? No more than you analyze me, he countered. It's an occupational hazard of dating another therapist. They both laughed, tension broken. Emma realized she wasn't afraid of his insights. They felt like recognition rather than judgment. Later that week, Emma had dinner with Rebecca, who was preparing for a larger exhibition in New York. David called, Rebecca mentioned casually. He's been seeing a therapist. Says he's understanding things about himself he never recognized before. Are you considering reconciliation? Emma asked. Rebecca shook her head. No, but I'm glad he's doing his own work. Makes me feel less guilty about prioritizing mine. The female shadow often includes guilt about self-prioritization, Emma noted. Look who's talking, Rebecca teased. You've built an entire life around avoiding personal needs. Had, Emma corrected. I'm working on the present tense. Autumn returned to Boston. Trees along Commonwealth Avenue turning golden. Emma stood before her class at Boston University, concluding her lecture on Jungian shadow integration. Jung believed that the shadow isn't something to be eliminated, but integrated, made conscious rather than unconscious. This integration doesn't happen once but continues throughout life as new awareness emerges. A student raised her hand. Is this why you're incorporating feminist perspectives into traditional Jungian analysis in your recent work? Partly, Emma acknowledged. Jung's insights were revolutionary, but like all theorists, he was limited by his cultural context. Women's psychological experiences often differ from men's due to social expectations and constraints. After class, Emma walked across campus to meet Daniel for lunch. They developed a comfortable rhythm, balancing connection with independence, challenging each other intellectually while supporting each other emotionally. Her phone rang. Her mother calling about Thanksgiving plans. Rebecca's hosting this year, Catherine said. In her new place. She wants to know if you'll be bringing Daniel. Yes, Emma decided. I'll bring him. Good. Your father and I like him. A pause. Emma, I've been thinking about what you said about studying art history. Did you know the community college offers adult classes? Emma smiled, hearing the tentative new direction in her mother's voice. I think that's a wonderful idea, Mom. Later, in her office, Emma opened her journal, a practice she'd resumed recently. She wrote about her evolving understanding of Jung's female shadow concept, about her relationships with Rebecca, her parents, Daniel, her clients, about the parts of herself she was still discovering. The wooden door from her dreams had transformed. In recent dreams, it stood not as a barrier but as a passage between rooms in a house that kept revealing new spaces. some challenging, some beautiful, all part of a larger whole. Emma closed the journal, gazing out her office window at the autumn leaves spiraling in the wind. The integration of her shadow hadn't made life perfect or painless, but it had made it more authentic. The work would continue, as all important journeys do, not toward completion but toward wholeness. The darkness contained within the shadow was not, as she'd once feared, a void to be avoided, but rather the necessary contrast that made the full spectrum of being human visible. In embracing it, she'd found not perfect happiness but something better, truth.